Welcome to this episode of the Open Concept podcast, where we are breaking down unnecessary walls and barriers that stand in the way of greatness. It was 1995, and Urban Meyer sat in his tiny office at Colorado State, staring at a contract that would change everything. He was making $12,000 a year as a graduate assistant, and his wife was pregnant with their first child. The Notre Dame offer sat on his desk, promised six figures, but not as a coach. They wanted him in sales. That evening, his mentor, Sonny Lubick, called him up into his office. He said, "Urban, I hear Notre Dame's knocking." The conversation that followed wasn't just about football. For 2 hours, they talked about purpose, about the difference between making a living and making a life. Lubick saw something in Meyer that Meyer himself couldn't yet see. "You're not a salesman, Urban. You're a coach. It's not what you do, it's who you are." And those words hit Meyer like a thunderbolt. "But coach," Meyer protested, "I've got a baby on the way. I can barely afford rent." Lubick leaned forward. "Sometimes the hardest path is the right one. Give me 2 more years. Just 2 years." That conversation changed the trajectory of college football. Meyer turned down Notre Dame, stuck with coaching, and went on to become one of the most successful college coaches in history, leading the teams to 3 national championships. In 2008, Howard Schultz had just returned as CEO of a struggling Starbucks. Maybe you've heard of them. The company was laying off thousands, closing hundreds of stores, and their stocks had plummeted 40%. One evening, he received a call from Michael Dell. They weren't close friends. They'd met briefly at conferences, but Dell had been through something similar, returning to his company when it was struggling. And the conversation that followed wasn't about balance sheets, profit margins, gross profit. He said, "Howard, everyone's going to tell you about the numbers, but let me tell you what no one else will. This isn't about the coffee anymore. It's about looking in the mirror and having the courage to admit what isn't working." Later that night, that call turned into a monthly dialogue. Dell shared his own mistakes, his own doubts. He told Schultz about the importance of making decisions that hurt in the short term, but heal in the long term. This unexpected mentorship, this willingness to have hard conversations about failure, redemption, really helped guide Starbucks through its darkest period to emerge even stronger than ever. Chris Gardner, the man whose story would later inspire the pursuit of happiness, was at his lowest point. Homeless, a single father trying to complete a stockbroker internship while sleeping in the subway bathrooms. One rainy night, his younger brother found him. His brother had every reason to judge. Their childhood had been rough, and Chris had made plenty of mistakes. Instead, they sat in a cheap diner, steam rising from the coffee cups that Chris really couldn't even afford at the time. "Chris, I've been watching you," his brother said. "You're not just chasing a job. You're showing your son what's possible." Then came the words that would echo through Chris's hardest days. "You can't quit now. It's not about you anymore. Every step you take, your son is watching, and one day he is going to tell your story." That conversation, the promise to persist, not just for himself, but for his son, carried Chris through months of homelessness, through the grueling internship, through countless moments when giving up seemed like the only logical choice. And today, Chris Gardner is a multimillionaire entrepreneur, author, motivational speaker, but more importantly, his son did tell his story. And it has inspired millions of people. Sara Blakely was at her breaking point. She'd been spending her life savings developing her product, driven 10,000 miles to pitch to mills, manufacturers, faced rejection after rejection. That's when she found a letter her father had written her years before, tucked away in her dresser drawer. Growing up, her father had started a tradition at their dinner table. Every week, he'd ask, "Sarah, what did you fail at this week?" Young Sarah would share her failures, and instead of consolation, she'd receive celebration. But this letter was different. It was meant for this moment, though she hadn't known it then. "Sarah," the letter said, "someday you're going to hit a wall so hard you think it's made of steel. That's not failure knocking. That's opportunity testing your resolve. Remember our talks. Remember that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it." She called her father that night. It wasn't just a conversation about business or persistence. It's about understanding that every no was teaching her something she needed to know. Her father reminded her of their dinner table conversations, but this time he added something new. "Sarah, you're not failing. You're finding every way that doesn't work, which means you're getting closer and closer to the way that does." That conversation gave her the courage to try one more time, to make one more call. That next manufacturer she contacted not only agreed to make her product, but became a crucial partner in launching what would become Spanx, a company that would eventually make her a billionaire and revolutionize an industry. These conversations remind us that sometimes the most important words we hear aren't the ones that solve our problems, but the ones that help us find the strength to solve them ourselves. They show us that the right conversation at the right moment with the right person can illuminate a path we didn't see before. Think about your own life. Maybe there's someone, a teacher, a coach, a family friend, or a colleague who saw something in you that you couldn't see in yourself. Someone who took the time to have that difficult, honest conversation that helped you redirect your path. These mentors appear in our lives in unexpected ways, sometimes just for a moment, sometimes just for a moment, sometimes for years, sometimes for a lifetime. But here's what's even more powerful. Right now, you might be that person for somebody else. The words you choose to speak or to hold back could be the turning point in another person's story. That colleague who's struggling with a career decision, that young person who needs someone to believe in them, that friend who's about to give up on their dream, they might be waiting for that conversation that only you can have with them. Remember, the most profound mentorship often doesn't come with a formal title. It happens in coffee shops, in a brief hallway conversation, in a late night phone call. Your life experience, your failures, your successes, they're all preparation for conversation that could change someone's life. The question is, will you have the courage to have that conversation when the moment presents itself? Will you be able to recognize in that moment that this is one of those times? I hope these short stories have shared with you I hope you've been able to take away today a lesson. I hope you've been able to take away today the understanding of a moment that may have changed your lives. I hope that this encourages you to pick up the phone, to have the conversation with somebody that you know you may need to have a conversation with. Because one conversation is standing in between yourself and greatness. One conversation with you might be standing in the way of somebody else and them reaching their greatness. Keep up those conversations. Speak what's on your heart. Have a blessed day.